Chapter 91. Establishing One's Might 1. Yi Ling's body trembled as he closed his eyes in pain. A few years ago, his mother, Empress Yi, unexpectedly passed away. After which, noble consort Rong was conferred as the empress. In order to let her son succeed to the throne as emperor, she did not hesitate to incite Emperor Father to force him head to Longyuan Kingdom to become a pawn. Father Emperor, to preserve his peace, agreed to this proposal. Thus, him being reduced to becoming a hostage was related to these two. What you spoke of is correct. I do completely understand why I was reduced to becoming a hostage. Yi Ling opened his eyes, which contained experiences of life's vicissitudes, and stared at young Luo Feng. And, if I didn't become a hostage, I fear that that woman wouldn't have let me off. Young Luo Feng languidly lifted her eyes, her lips raised in a wicked smile. So you could say that my grandfather can be considered as your savior. If it's like this, then can you tell me what is the purpose of that dog emperor sending you here? She refused to believe that Yi Ling was sent by him to the general estate just to monitor them. Yi Ling's body suddenly became stiff, and he stewed in silence for a few moments before responding truthfully to young Luo Feng's words. Besides having me observe the general estate, that dog emperor tasked me to seduce you. And also, to make you carry my child. While saying these words, Yi Ling's complexion turned completely red, not knowing where to place his sight. Young Luo Feng's dark eyes flashed with a ray of cold light as she asked with upturned lips, for what purpose? Yi Ling glanced at young Luo Feng. If you succeeded in carrying my child, then he can sentence the general estate the crime of colluding with the enemy and betraying one's country. Even if I am merely a hostage, my identity as the third prince of the enemy's nation still exists. His words implied that Gao Tu sent him here not only to spy on the general estate but also to frame and create false charges and thoroughly abolishing the general estate, the emperor's malignant tumor. It was a pity that old General Yun fought for his country for many years. His son and daughter-in-law even perished in the war, and yet he was reduced to such an ending. This dog emperor really laid down a game of good chess. Young Luo Feng bewitchingly smiled, her features displaying her innate arrogance. Unfortunately, he underestimated the general estate and what's more, he underestimated me. Indeed, Gao Tu underestimated young Luo Feng too much. He originally thought young Luo Feng would definitely covet beauty and fall into his treacherous plan. But he did not realize that the current young Luo Feng is no longer the person who was in unrequited love with the crown prince from a few months ago. Moreover, with a perfect Yun Xiao next to her, she could only turn her nose up at third Prince Yi Ling. Yi Ling, young Luo Feng's faintly smiling eyes landed on Yi Ling's body. Even though the smile on her face did not change, it still made people feel a penetrating coldness. What consequences do you think there are for helping the dog emperor in plotting against me? Yi Ling's complexion became ghastly pale as he said with a bitter smile, as a hostage, it is also not of my own volition. I can only obey his orders. I don't care what reasons you have nor do I care about your identity. I only know that you wanted to plot against me. Young Luo Feng's eyes revealed a harsh light, and she sternly said, this point alone is enough. Yi Ling's body shuddered. He knew, no matter how unwilling he was, as long as he helped Gao Tu plot against her, there was no way she would forgive him. Swish. In Yi Ling's moment of silence, the young lady's figure was like a mirage, suddenly appearing near him. A slim arm grabbed his wrist, twisting it with force, and a stab of pain shot through his body. It was so painful that Yi Ling could not help but scream. Bang! The girl threw his body on the ground, her foot stepping on his chest. Before Yi Ling had the chance to close his mouth, she fished out a porcelain bottle from her sleeve and forcefully poured the bottle's medicinal liquid into his mouth. Chapter 92. Establishing One's Might 2. Grunt. Yi Ling's complexion was charged with pain, and his vicissitude-filled eyes were brimming with horror. Feeling as though his internal organs were on fire and unbearably raw, he wished he could immediately die. What did you make me drink? Yi Ling squeezed his own neck tightly, his veins standing out from his temples, and both of his eyes were bulging. His handsome appearance was twisted due to the excessive pain, and his voice revealed heart-rending despair. I used the juice that I extracted from a few type of poisonous medicinal herbs that I specially prepared for you. Yi Ling, since you have the guts to come to my general estate to plot against me, then I will make you feel a pain that you would never forget in this lifetime. Young Luo Feng haughtily looked down on the youth rolling on the ground, her lips raised with a wicked smile as she continued to say, I'm most intolerant of betrayals. I will make living worse than death for anyone who betrays me. Inside the God Code world, Xiaomo could not resist rolling his eyes. He fully understood that his master was establishing her might. Simply put, she was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Her purpose was to make everyone present understand that betraying her would definitely not end well. Apparently, the effect of showing her power was remarkable. Seeing the youth who would rather die, everyone shuddered. There were even some who were glad that the one who betrayed her was not them. Kill me, I beg you to kill me. Yi Ling's voice was hoarse and painful. He looked at the arrogant young Luo Feng with prayers in his eyes as his eyes shed 2 trails of tears. Death would be more gratifying than this feeling of his viscera being set on fire. Those who betray me, I won't let them easily die. I will slowly torture them. Young Luo Feng's lips lifted in a bloodthirsty smile. Yi Ling, not only will I not let you die, but I will also make you loyal to me for your entire life. Only I can soothe your current pain, so from now on, you will hand your life over to me. Yi Ling did not even have to think before nodding his head and said in pain, I am willing to pledge my allegiance to you. I implore you to let me off. Young Luo Feng slowly bent down, leisurely piercing a silver needle into Yi Ling's heart. After the needles entered his body, a warm current slowly flowed into his organs, and the intense pain gradually disappeared. The silver needles can only temporarily stop your pain, so from now on, you must bath in the liquid medicine that I have prepared for you every month. Otherwise, this pain will follow you like a relentless shadow. She did not trust Yi Ling, so there was no chance that she would give Yi Ling the antidote. This was the only way that she could have complete control over him. Yi Ling's body laid limp on the ground, his forehead covered with cold sweat. He was so weak that he could not even utter a single word as he laid on the ground gasping for air. Young Luo Feng stood up, and her bewitching, dark eyes swept across everyone present. Her appearance was domineering, and her words were unrestrained. You have already seen the price for being a traitor. I, young Luo Feng, am most intolerant of betrayals. If anyone betrays me, I have thousands of ways to make living worse than death for them. But of course, none of you should take any chances. Yi Ling was hidden this deep, but I was still able to discover him. Everyone grew silent and did not even dare to take a deep breath under young Luo Feng's arrogant momentum. Young Luo Feng's gaze swept across everyone and continued, I will punish those who betray me to the ends of the earth. However, if you are wholeheartedly loyal to me, I will definitely grant you a bright future. I know that your innate talents are lacking and that's why you were bullied and looked down upon by others. If you swear your allegiance to me, I will give you a chance to reach the top and see if you can grasp it. Chapter 93, Establishing One's Might 3. The young lady's bewitching and confident voice was like a heavy club pounding heavily on their heart. Everyone lifted their head, staring at the girl whose beauty was like that of a painting, the astonishment in their eyes apparent. Was this still the worthless eldest miss that everyone disdained? Then why was the current her this peerlessly beautiful and strikingly radiant? It simply made one unable to mentally associate her with the woman who pestered Crown Prince a few months ago. Eldest miss, why us? Someone among the crowd voiced their doubts. Given the general estate's power, if they were determined to establish an army, they could definitely recruit outstanding geniuses, so why would she choose them? Young Luo Feng looked at the person among the crowd who spoke. This question is very simple. When I look at people, it is never about their innate talent but their perseverance instead. Who said that only geniuses can stand at the top of the continent? Even if your talent is mediocre, as long as you make an effort that is 10th or 100th times more than the average person, you won't be worse than geniuses. I also don't approve of the word trash. No one is born as trash, it only depends on whether you are willing to work hard. The girl's speech was very inspiring, making these people's blood start boiling. That's right, in this world, no one was born as trash. So what if their talent was mediocre? As long as they spent more effort than the average person, they could step on those so-called geniuses. Young Luo Feng saw her desired effect and the gaze that she used to look at everyone gradually simmered down. Well then, whether you can remain at General Estate will completely rely on your own perseverance. I don't need someone who doesn't have talent and is also unwilling to make an effort. If you slack off during training, I will immediately kick you out of General Estate. Believe me, after leaving General Estate, you will certainly regret not seizing the opportunity. Watching the girl's bewitching countenance, Yi Ling's heart was moved. If a few years ago, the one who fought with Lujin Kingdom was young Luo Feng instead of young Luo, he reckoned that Lujin Kingdom's defeat would only take a night. This girl's strength was not strong, but her words could instantly incite everyone's emotions and even make soldiers wholeheartedly believe in her words. Let's not mention General Yun Luo. He feared that even the previous Yun family's #1 genius, Yun Qingye, could not achieve that feat. I have already said my piece, so I don't need to speak more about how you should grasp this chance. I know it has been very depressing for you all to stay in this stone room all this time, but I was left without a choice. After all, there are too many of you, and my general estate could not accommodate you earlier. Young Luo Feng surveyed everyone present, lifting the corner of her lips slightly. Thankfully, I have already finished preparing for your accommodations. But before going to this place, I must warn you about one thing. From now on, you aren't allowed to reveal anything to anyone about this training. If there are transgressors, you've all witnessed the fate of Yi Ling. Everyone's heart trembled as they straightened their posture one after another. We will all carefully adhere to Eldest Miss' command. Great. Young Luo Feng shrugged, her bewitching eyes turning to Yi Ling. Yi Ling, after this, I'll open a passage for you, so that you can leave General Estate any time to report to the people from the palace. As for the contents of your report, you should clearly know. Yi Ling chuckled ruefully. No matter how Gao Tu calculated, he did not take into account that you have been disguising as a pig to eat a tiger. The people from the palace are destined to lose to you. No matter what, Yi Ling would never have thought that the current Yun Luo Feng was no longer the Yun Luo Feng from the past. He only thought that Yun Luo Feng had definitely been pretending to be dumb to take advantage of people these past few years, using the reputation of trash to deceive people's eyes. Yun Luo Feng also did not explain more and languidly stretched, saying with a pleased expression, "Let's go. I'll now take you to the underground training ground." Chapter 94. The Establishment of the Steel Court 1. The underground training ground was a span of 500 meters. In addition to the platform used for martial arts competition that had uneven levels, there were also 3 giant pits that suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone looked at the 3 giant pits with uncertainty and befuddlement, not knowing what they were for. As though oblivious to everyone's confusion, young Luo Feng slowly shifted her body, her arrogant gaze sweeping past everyone. Her voice carried an incredibly powerful charisma and slowly traveled through the crowd. There is a total of 200 people, 100 are men and the other 100 are women. So from now on, you will be segregated by gender and form 2 teams. As a man, you must have a mind and body as staunch as steel. Thus, from now on, you shall be called Steel Core. All of the men's posture became ramrod straight. They clearly had not started training yet, but they were already acting like regular soldiers, their mind and body solid as a boulder. We, Steel Core, from this time forth will definitely go through water and tread on fire for Eldest Miss without hesitation. Young Luo Feng raised her lips in a faint smile, her wicked dark eyes shifting to Yi Ling. Yi Ling, as Lujin Kingdom's 3rd prince, you are more experienced when it comes to training compared to most people, so you will serve as Steel Corp's vice commander. I hope you won't disappoint me. Yi Ling's body froze, his startled gaze turning to young Luo Feng. Before this, he assisted Gao Tu in scheming against her, but now this girl promoted him to vice commander. Yi Ling originally even thought that it was already quite nice that he was able to retain his life. He did not expect that young Luo Feng would disregard former enmities and even give him an important position. He did not know why a strange emotion would envelop his heart, making his heart lean towards young Luo Feng like a balance. Yi Ling, although you plotted against me, I still recognize your abilities. If you wholeheartedly pledge your loyalty and devotion to me from this time forth, I will also bestow you a bright future. Young Luo Feng glanced at the youth's sluggish expression and continued to say, however, if I find out that you betray me again, next time, it won't be as simple as using poison to control you, I will definitely make your life worse than death. Yi Ling's heart suddenly trembled, but he knew that young Luo Feng would certainly do what she said. He pursed his lips and looked at young Luo Feng with complicated feelings in his eyes. From now on, my life shall belong to you. Remember your words. Young Luo Feng looked up and turned to the other members of Steel Core. An arrogant and domineering expression was visible on her face. All of you must also remember that I would never allow anyone to betray me. If there are any traitors, I absolutely won't let them off. However, if you swear your loyalty to me, you will be one of my people from now on. I protect the weak, so your enemies will be my enemies, your family will also be everyone's family. The crowd suddenly quieted down, settling into silence. Then, everyone looked at young Luo Feng, moved. Their hearts started boiling in an instant. What could be more touching than a master who would treat your enemies as her enemies and your family as her own family? Just with these words alone, everyone had already acknowledged their allegiance to young Luo Feng in their mind. Eldest Miss, a handsome young man of 16 or 17 years of age, raised his hand and weakly asked, "I want to know if third prince is the vice commander, then who is our commander?" Young Luo Feng smiled. "Your chief commander is quite a mysterious character. I will bring him here to meet you in a few days. But you must not reveal the identity of the commander to anyone. Offenders shall be sentenced for a crime of treason." Chapter 95. The Establishment of the Steel Corps 2. In regard to the candidacy of the commander position, no one was more suitable than second uncle. Grandfather was already old and should not be troubled by this issue. Coupled with the fact that second uncle's morale was low, if she could have him lead the army, it would bolster his confidence. As for the rest of you, young Luo Feng turned to the crowd of women and said, "You shall be called Raging Flame Corps. My intention for choosing this name is for you to become a raging flame, not leaving a single inch of ground alive wherever you go. We will carefully adhere to Eldest Miss commands." Everyone in the Raging Flame Corps cupped their fists in salute and unanimously responded. "Remember, you're no soldier, so you don't need to be restricted by doctrines." Young Luo Feng's voice was uninhibitedly domineering, as though embodying a type of insolence that looked down on people. "Protecting the people is also not your responsibility. All you need to protect is the young clan and your family. If you are trying to save your family, I'll do all I can to help. If you are saving a stranger, then do what you can. I don't want you to drag down the entire army just for some unimportant person. Besides this, you can do as you will and be as you are." It was not that young Luo Feng disdained soldiers, any soldier was worth her respect. However, respect was just that, respect. She would not blindly agree with them. In her heart, nothing was more important than family and friends. Why would she implicate her family just for those people who were of no concern to her? What a grand, "You can do as you will and be as you are." Yi Ling chuckled wryly, his regard for young Luo Feng becoming more complex. But he understood that there was already something gradually taking root and sprouting in his heart and growing into a towering tree that will eventually reach high up in the sky. This thing was called loyalty. "Eldest Miss, Steel Corps already has a commander and vice commander. May I ask who will serve those posts in our Raging Flame Corps?" Among the Raging Flame Corps, a quick-witted and adorable young girl raised her hand and blinked her eyes while asking, "What is your name?" Young Luo Feng's sight landed on the girl, lightly raising her brow. Seeing young Luo Feng asking for her name, the young girl's heart was somewhat excited. "I'm named Zhang Linger." "Zhang Linger." Young Luo Feng smiled entrancingly. "This name is quite nice. You will be Raging Flame Corps vice commander from now on. Of course, in the training following this, you must exert more effort than the rest of them. If you're unable to keep up, you can only abdicate your position to other people." Zhang Linger nearly jumped from excitement. Afraid that young Luo Feng would really give the vice commander position to other people, she hurriedly swore, "Eldest Miss, don't worry, I definitely won't disappoint you." Young Luo Feng faintly nodded. "I hope so. As for the Raging Flame Corps chief commander, I've already thought of a candidate. Once she arrives, you must obey her command." Seeing Zhang Linger grabbing the initial opportunity, the other girls regretted in their mind. Why didn't they step out just now? Otherwise, the one who young Luo Feng would have noticed would have been them instead. However, hearing young Luo Feng's following words, hope gradually rose up in their disappointed heart. They still had a chance. They only had to surpass Zhang Linger, and the position of vice commander would be theirs. Suddenly, every girl was soaring with fighting spirit, strongly wishing they could immediately throw themselves into training. "Yi Ling, Zhang Linger," young Luo Feng languidly said while yawning, "I'm giving you a task. Within a half day, let everyone to fill up the 3 pits with water. You will officially begin your training tomorrow." "Yes," Yi Ling and Zhang Linger respectfully answered. Without a doubt, young Luo Feng had already completely tamed them in these short minutes. Chapter 96. The Establishment of the Steel Corps 3. After she left the underground training ground, Qingyan came to inform her that Elder Rong of Medical Pavilion brought a patient for her to treat. While saying this, little Yetu Qingyan's pretty face was filled with excitement, as though the one that Elder Rong called as godly doctor was her. "Miss, you are really awesome. Even Medical Pavilion's people come to find you to treat illnesses. This maid is truly very proud." Young Luo Feng looked at little Yetu's red cheeks with a faint smile and teased, "What are you being proud of?" "Of course, I'm proud that this servant is a godly doctor's little maid. Miss, your difficult times are now finally over, and your good times are just beginning. Thankfully, His Highness the Crown Prince abandoned you, otherwise, considering his status, he might not be a good match for you, Miss," Qingyan said, extremely angry. As soon as she thought of all the things that Gao Ling had done to young Luo Feng, she would fume with resentment and rage between gritted teeth. "Qingyan," young Luo Feng paused and suddenly asked, "If there's an opportunity for you to become strong, would you be willing to accept it?" In the entire Yun family, it could be said that besides grandfather and second uncle, the one whom she trusted the most was none other than this little Yetu. In the former Yun family, only this little Yetu genuinely and sincerely acted on her behalf. Qingyan stared at Yun Luofeng in bafflement. Becoming a strong person? Why does this servant need to become a strong person? This servant only wants to accompany Miss. Moreover, you are now a godly doctor, Miss. Following you is more reliable than becoming a strong person, at least this servant doesn't have to worry about getting sick. Qingyan, what if becoming a strong person will allow you to handle more affairs for me? Young Luofeng's gaze landed on Qingyan's pretty face and asked again. Qingyan blinked. If this servant can handle affairs for Miss, then this servant is definitely willing to become a strong person. Miss, you are really odd today. Why are you asking these questions? Young Luofeng burst into laughter as she shook her head, but she did not respond to Qingyan's question and said with raised brows, "Let's go, I will treat someone's illness first. As for what I just mentioned, you will soon understand." Inside the main hall, young Luo slowly took a sip of tea. His eyes would occasionally dart outside the door, anxiety gradually appearing in his eyes. "Elder Rong, Elder Ning, please wait for a few more minutes, that stinky girl of mine walks rather slow. She should currently be on her way." If those who came here were from the imperial clan, young Luo would not be this anxious, but the one who came this time to seek young Luofeng was Elder Rong of the medical pavilion. And the other elderly person beside Elder Rong also was not an ordinary person. Otherwise, Elder Rong would not respectfully call him Elder Ning. He could not even see through the ability of the pretty girl standing beside Elder Ning. One could well imagine how strong this girl's innate talent was. It was at least not weaker than Yun Qingya's from 10 years ago. Ho ho, Elder Ning faintly chuckled twice, lightly sipping the tea and said, "General Yun, we can afford to wait for a while, you don't have to fret too much." Elder Ning was short of saying the phrase, "The emperor is not worried, but his eunuchs are worried to death." The old man's complexion contained a hint of embarrassment and he dryly coughed twice, using an angry expression to conceal the embarrassment on his face. "This stinky girl, always arriving late. When she arrives, I must reprimand her." Of course, it was said like this, but if you really had him chide Yun Luofeng, he could not bear to do so. Chapter 97. The Establishment of the Steel Court 4. "Grandfather, I was only momentarily delayed because of some matters, yet you're already scolding me like this behind my back." All of a sudden, there was a languid voice carrying shallow laughter that could be heard from the door. In the streak of sunlight, the white-dressed girl ambled over. Her absolutely gorgeous feature carried a bewitching smile, and her dark eyes were like the pitch-black night sky, so deep that people had no way of examining the bottom of it. The lady's sight landed on the taciturn, middle-aged man inside the huge hall. After seeing the middle-aged man's pale hair, the smile on her lips revealed a trace of clear understanding. If she did not guess incorrectly, this middle-aged man was the person suffering from the Manluo poison. "Uniato, you finally came." Elder Rong emotionally stood up. "I have already brought the patient here. May I ask Uniato, how certain are you that you can save him?" Young Luofeng raised the corner of her brow, watching the middle-aged man with a penetrating look. "Currently, he's already fatally ill, his head of white hair is the best proof. His appearance might still be around 40 years old, but, in truth, his physiological functions have already reached its limits." Elder Rong's heart contracted. "Uniato, can he still be saved?" "Still possible. Though if he was just poisoned, I would still have 100% chance, but right now, I only have 70% chance at most." Young Luofeng looked at Elder Rong with a smile. "However, Elder Rong, my price for treating an illness is very high. Furthermore, for someone like you, I don't accept money and will only accept medicinal herbs. Of course, if my treatment fails, I will return the original items." Elder Rong's eyes glowed with excitement. To him, 70% chance of being cured was already more than enough. Those doctors of the medical pavilion did not even possess 10% chance of certainty. Girl, our medical pavilion has a red hackberry tree that's over 1,000 years old. If you can save him, this red hackberry tree will be yours. Young Luo Feng's heart abruptly quivered. Within the wide varieties of medicinal herbs, the red hackberry tree was considered extremely precious. It was said that a red hackberry tree only produced 10 red hackberries each year. And the number of red hackberry trees on the entire continent could be counted on one hand, so one could imagine how precious 1,000 years red hackberry tree was. As for the use of red hackberries, it was said that it could raise the spiritual energy inside the body of a spirit cultivator after consuming it. Spiritual power was different from spiritual energy. Spiritual power served the purpose of being consumed while battling. Even if one was strong, when all of their spiritual strength was exhausted during a battle, they could still be trampled on by others. But the spiritual energy was the entire heaven and earth's spiritual energy and could be absorbed by spirit cultivators and concentrated at their dantian. A breakthrough could be achieved after reaching a certain threshold. Thus, could you imagine the temptation a red hackberry tree that could provide the spiritual energy presented? Even if the spiritual energy it could give was pitifully meager, it could still make many people willing to spend a large sum to purchase it. Yetu, I know that a red hackberry tree can't compare with your spirit-gathering medicinal liquid, but this is considered as our medical pavilion's most precious medicinal herb. If it weren't for saving Darren, I could not bear to take it out, afraid that young Luo Feng would turn up her nose at the red hackberry tree, Elder Rong hurriedly explained. Very well, young Luo Feng smiled, her eyes flashing with a streak of entrancing light. If I successfully concoct the antidote, this red hackberry tree will be mine. To be honest, she really did not care for the little amount of spiritual energy that the red hackberry tree could provide. However, if she planted the red hackberry tree in the God Code world's medicinal field, then the effect would no longer be the same. Perhaps the old man could use it to break through to a high-level intermediate-rank spirit cultivator. Elder Rong's heart became delighted. Uniato, may we start treatment now? Young Luo Feng nodded, and her gaze turned to the silently waiting Elder Ning. I will first treat the person from Medical Pavilion, and then I will work on your treatment once I'm done with him. Chapter 98. Mu Family Visiting 1. As for young Luo Feng choosing to treat the person from Medical Pavilion first, Elder Ning naturally did not have any objections and faintly smiled while saying, Uniato, this old crock will head to the rear court with you. You should treat him first, and then treat me after you're done with his treatment. Exener, help me up. Yes, grandfather. Ning Xin's face displayed a brilliant smile as she supported the old man's body and lifted him from the chair, her clear eyes containing a faint smile. Young Luo glanced at the dignified and beautiful Ning Xin, and his heart bore some sentiments. This was a true daughter of noble lineage. Every movement displayed her extremely fine etiquette. Just watching her movements made one feel pleased and delighted. Unlike the artificial Mu Wuxuang. Mu Wuxuang's composure was completely deliberate, her entire body exuding a hypocritical air. If these two stood side by side, one would be able to distinguish the true victor. Follow me. Young Luo Feng lazily stretched, her bewitching eyes sweeping past everyone present, and then turned around to head out of the main hall. Inside the Prime Minister estate, ever since Mu Wuxuang returned with swollen cheeks 2 nights ago, it had not been peaceful since then. All the servants and maids did not even dare to take a deep breath, afraid that Master Prime Minister, who had nowhere to vent his anger, would cause suffering to the bystanders. Trash, a bunch of good-for-nothing. Inside the study, Mu Xingqiu swept all the books on the desk to the ground, his geriatric face completely furious. I asked you to go to Medical Pavilion to purchase medicinal herbs that reduced swellings, and you actually couldn't buy it. What use do I have for you? Mu Xingqiu's complexion was livid as he glared at the servants kneeling on the ground with eyes fraught with rage. All the servants were so frightened that they firmly kept their heads lowered and did not even have the courage to lift their head. Each of them coweringly curled their bodies, their entire bodies ceaselessly trembling. Master Prime Minister, those from Medical Pavilion said that the medicinal herbs were all destroyed by Imperial Dr. Jing, so Medical Pavilion is already out of stock. The medicinal herbs of Medical Pavilion could never run out. But those people had Elder Rong's orders and simply would not sell medicinal herbs to the Prime Minister estate. It was a pity that the current Mu Xingqiu did not know this fact. Grandfather. Just as Mu Xingqiu was about to go on a rampage once again, a graceful voice slowly traveled from the entrance. The moment that Mu Xingqiu heard that voice, his rage gradually subsided. He lifted his head, looked at the young lady entering the study, and asked with heartache, "Wuxuang, why did you come?" The Mu Wuxuang of this moment no longer had her former beauty. Her entire face was covered with gauze, only leaving behind a pair of eyes that were brimming with resentment and a delicate mouth. "Grandfather, I already heard about the medical pavilion matter." Mu Wuxuang slightly lowered her eyes. "I also know that in the course of avenging me, Master accidentally damaged Medical Pavilion's property, leading to him to become blacklisted by Medical Pavilion. In fact, Medical Pavilion hadn't actually run out of stock. Moreover, because of Master's impertinence in Medical Pavilion, it even resulted in Medical Pavilion not selling us their medicinal herbs." With Jing Lin's personality of saving face with absolute determination, he definitely would not speak about the mishap that he suffered at the Medical Pavilion. Everyone who was present that day at the Medical Pavilion also did not dare to spread the matter everywhere due to Elder Rong's order. Thus, until now, Mu Wuxuang did not understand that the reason that Prime Minister Estate was unable to purchase medicinal herbs at the Medical Pavilion was because Medical Pavilion wanted to vent their anger for young Luo Feng. "Xuanzhi, you can rest assured that grandfather will definitely avenge you for this humiliation," Mu Xingqiu coldly stated as a murderous intent flashed through his eyes. Chapter 99, Mu Family Visiting 2. Mu Wuxuang's body trembled and she painfully closed her eyes, the bottom of her heart suffused with a bitter feeling. "Grandfather, the person who injured me is His Highness the Crown Prince. I won't exact revenge for this no matter what." HMPH. Mu Xingqiu coldly harumphed, his aged face darkening as he coldly stated, "When did I ever say I wanted to find Crown Prince to exact revenge? In this situation, Crown Prince is also a victim. The real culprit is young Luo Feng. If it weren't for His Highness the Crown Prince suffering from a serious disease recently, he would definitely find young Luo Feng to settle the score." Mu Wuxuang did not respond. When it comes to enmity towards young Luo Feng, no one's hate could run deeper than hers. "Grandfather, ever since young Luo Feng made Crown Prince hit me that day, I already swore that there will eventually be a day where I will make her experience the same pain. However, Yun family is under the protection of old man Yun. Even if our Prime Minister Estate has the Emperor's favor, what can we do? There's nothing we can do about young Luo Feng. Xuanzhi, I've long since had a countermeasure for dealing with this matter." Mu Xingqiu started to laugh darkly. "In a while, I will enter the palace to seek an imperial decree from your aunt and have her summon young Luo Feng to enter the palace to be Her Highness the Princess's study companion. During that time, without the protection of Yun family's old man, you can torment her however you want." Mu Wuxuang's eyes shone. How did she not think of this idea? As long as young Luo Feng entered the palace, her life and death will hinge on her whim. Of course, she would not let that woman die easily. She would make her life worse than death. Thinking of this, the bitter resentment inside Mu Wuxuang's beautiful eyes deepened, just like a poisonous snake, able to instantly gobble someone. Under the intense sunlight, the general estate was quiet and serene. At present, the old man was leisurely sampling tea without a care in the main hall. His entire geriatric face carried a spring-like and splendid joy. It was obvious that young Luo Feng's recent actions gave him extreme confidence. He believed that there would eventually be a day where Yun family would charge out of the tiny Longyuan and appear in the eyes of the people in the continent. With Fenger, this girl, here, perhaps her second uncle's grievance can really be avenged, the old man muttered to himself. Thinking about Yun family's bitter and deep-seated enmity, his features gradually darkened. "Sir, not good, we have a problem." Suddenly, a servant rushed inside with dripping sweat on his face, his voice carrying anxiousness. Prime Minister Mu Estate came and said that they carry an imperial decree from Imperial Concubine Mu and also clearly stated that this imperial decree should be received by eldest Miss. The old man's face instantly darkened, and the teacup in his hand was viciously smashed into the ground with a thud. "Which of Mu family's son of a bitch came?" It's Mu family's eldest young master," the servant reported while trembling and stammering. As soon as the words were spoken, a cold laughter was suddenly heard from outside the hall, disdain apparent in its arrogance. It turns out this is the true personality of the dignified state general, disparaging someone as a son of a bitch without compunction. "Even my Prime Minister Estate's servants won't spew profanities the way you do." A man in brocade garments swiftly strode inside from outside the door, carrying a red imperial decree in his hands, his cold features bearing slight similarities with Mu Wushwang. His lips were raised with a touch of ridicule. Mu Wuchen, what did you come here for? The old man's feature became more and more intolerable, his severe gaze shooting daggers at the man clad in brocade garments who appeared at the entrance. Mu Wuchen was Mu Wushwang's full-blooded older brother as well as Mu family's successor. This Mu Wuchen was different from Mu Shen, that hedonistic son. To Mu family, Mu Shen was an inconsequential existence, but Mu Wuchen possessed Mu Xingchu's affection, just like Mu Wushwang. Chapter 100. Mu family visiting 3. I naturally came here to pass on noble consort Nianyang's imperial decree. Have Yun Luo Feng receive the decree now? Mu Wuchen frostily looked at the old man and said in a haughty way. The old man sneered. My granddaughter isn't an idle person like you, who only knows how to trouble other people whenever you have nothing to do. She is incredibly busy, so how could she have the time to receive the decree? Will you promptly get lost on your own, or do you need this general to throw you out? If the one who came was someone else from the imperial clan, perhaps the old man would be a bit more polite. But since the other party was a member of Mu family, considering his hatred towards the Mu family, not directly throwing him out was already polite enough. General Yun Luo, I came here to announce noble consort's imperial decree. If you don't have Yun Luo Feng come out to accept the decree, it can be construed as a crime of deceiving the sovereign. Mu Wuchen's eyes darkened by several degrees, his arrogant voice containing a trace of coldness. The old man loudly laughed twice. The crime of deceiving the sovereign, just who is considered a sovereign? May I ask if you came to pass on His Majesty's decree, or perhaps Empress Nianyang's decree? Oh, right, the current Longyuan kingdom doesn't have an empress, so how am I insulting the sovereign? It's merely a noble consort. In the end, she is just His Majesty's concubine. Do you think that this general needs to be afraid of a concubine? Wasn't this how it was? No matter how honorable noble consort's status was, she was nothing more than a concubine. The only one who could be on equal footing with His Majesty was the Empress. However, the current Long Yuan did not have an Empress. Therefore, the only one that the old man needed to give a bit of face to was His Majesty. Of course, this type of giving face was on the premise that His Majesty did not offend him. Otherwise, he would not give face to anyone. Mu Wuchen's temper was considered to be quite great, not actually getting angry to the point of stomping about after being subjected to this type of humiliation by Yun Luo. He only took a deep breath, suppressing the fury bursting forth from his heart, and coldly stated, "That's correct, in an ordinary merchant house, noble consort Nianyang's status is just a concubine. Similarly, in this type of family background, you are also just like a servant, general. No matter how low the concubine's position is, she is still your master. Now that master has an order, you can also only comply." Ho ho, the old man sneered and shamelessly said, "In any case, I definitely won't recognize her status as a master. You want to see my granddaughter, you can. Wait here, the moment she's done with her affair is the moment you will be able to see her." This time, without waiting for Mu Wuchen to speak, the guards behind him all grew furious. Every one of them would love to go up and shred the old man apart. "We came to announce noble consort Nianyang's imperial decree. This behavior of yours is clearly looking down on noble consort Nianyang. Eldest young master, in accordance with the crime of general defying imperial law, it thus warrants the extermination of 9 familial branches." Generally speaking, the dog behind the master was the mouth of that master. When the master wanted to have an outburst but must also maintain appearances, the dog would stand up and say the words that his master wanted to convey. And whenever this happens, the master would come out to pretend to be a good person. But didn't they bother to wonder how the servants would have the guts to say this type of things without their master's permission? The old man was naturally fully aware of this fact, so a sneer emerged on his old face. "I only have one sentence. You either wait or get lost. I don't care whose imperial decree you came to declare. If you want to disturb my granddaughter while she's busy with her affairs, that's fine. Once you defeat me, we can talk again." The old man of this moment was just like a war god, obstructing Mu Wuchen and everyone else, his speech full of loftiness. The guards were fuming mad to the point of wanting to spew profanities, but they were stopped by Mu Wuchen's extending hand. "Very well, I will wait for her here."